The Hawai'i Sports Radio Network on 95.1 FM and AM 760 presents Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ule Agbayani.
Good morning, beautiful people. It's Wake Up in the Den alongside Paul Brecht. I'm Ku'ule Agbayani, and making his way in, and he'll be here pretty soon, is Michael Liscaro. Happy Aloha Monday. Thank you for joining us and tuning in on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM, AM 760, hawaiisportsradio.com, and streaming live right now on our YouTube channel. So hello to everyone tuning in, and thank you guys for doing so every single Monday. You can either chime in on the live chat or you can text us at 808-888-KGU1. That's 808-888-5481 if you want to get in on the conversation. We will get into a bunch of stuff. Of course, we'll get into a lot of NBA talk, and not maybe just strictly about the wrapping up the Eastern Conference Finals and kind of get our early predictions on the NBA Finals now that they are set. Between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers. Thank you very much, Paul George, for setting that up for all of our basketball fans here, and we will tell you what that means, even though we talked about it a little bit before. But talk about our early predictions, and we'll get into actually a lot of men's and women's college World Series as well. Give you a heads up on where the brackets are set right now. Recap the NBA on TNT. Now that it is all PAL, at least it's all PAL on TNT anyways, the cast and crew of Inside the NBA, fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, will move over to ESPN. But we'll hope that not much will change, and we don't have to see like additional ESPN analysts make their way onto Inside the NBA because, ESPN probably gives the worst NBA coverage, in my personal opinion, and I'm happy that the guys of Inside the NBA will still be somewhere to tune into come next year's NBA season. But we'll get into that, and as I mentioned, with the men's and women's college World Series, couple of interesting, I don't know if they're really controversial, but question mark calls that really make you shake your head and be like, huh? I don't understand. And for someone who I've been very open that I'm not a baseball expert per any means, not like, Alan Mia, Kyle Galdera, or even our Paul Brecht here, but I am definitely a little bit more knowledgeable than the average person. And even I was like, I do not understand what I am seeing and what are these calls and what's reviewable and not reviewable. Fortunately, in some of those games, the calls or lack thereof didn't really matter to the final outcome of the game, but we'll talk about that. Also, one of the interesting news things to drop, which we will talk about definitely, and I know it's something that everyone's passionate about, is the UH Athletics director situation. Warrior All Access wanting to drop a bomb of someone that we've never even talked about or someone that I've never even heard of as being a potential finalist. And those guys at WAA, they are definitely, I would say their intel, usually when they have inside sources, I would make them comparable to me. Like, I will believe it.
Just put it out there for fun. They're not really into the whole, like, doing it for clicks or whatever. It's more truly, we heard this, let's share with the people who care.
Exactly. So if you guys are curious for that, we will talk about that coming up on this show. But first, got to get into some NBA talk. Obviously, like I said, the NBA Finals are set between the Pacers and the Thunder following the Indiana Pacers win, Michael Liscaro's team, over Paul Brecht's team, the New York Knicks. And it's just so funny kind of keeping up with your guys back and forth during the game, because I honestly, as you notice, I don't really put much input during the game. One, I'm not entirely paying attention the entire time like you guys are. And two, I just have nothing to contribute to the conversation except for a little tidbit here and there, because I know both of you guys, as someone who gets very emotional when her teams are playing in big time games, I have nothing to add and don't want to make like I do when there's some emotion on the line when it comes to those teams. But nonetheless, though, Paul, I know it was weird because it was a close one. Seemed like it was going to be quite the game in the first half. And then it didn't exactly work out that way in the second half. And then Indiana ended up pulling away and pretty much winning convincingly, even though we were still being very, very conservative. And by we, I mean Michael still did not want to give in to the fact that, hey, anything could happen in this one and anyone can come from behind. But Indiana cruising to a 128-108 win over New York, a game. And there you go. And now we have the NBA finals that are set. But looking back at that Eastern Conference game itself, Paul, game 6, and then the overall series and what you saw from your Knicks, what are some of your takeaways and why were the Knicks not able to close out that second half and at least make it more of a game down the stretch? And then maybe what are some of the things that, hey, this is kind of the things that maybe they needs to be done. I mean, do they need to facilitate something, some kind of deal to do with Paul George or something? I don't know. But in reality, what did you kind of see from the New York Knicks in this game specifically, and in the second half of and then just overall in this series?
I mean, I'll be honest. I don't want to be like, oh, I called it, but like as the series went on, we discussed the things that we saw, and the Knicks, unfortunately for me, were exactly who I thought they were as it went on. After that first game dropped, it completely changed the tenor of the series. In this one, I thought the Knicks came out very, very well. I was like, oh, they're taking it pretty seriously. Indiana did what Indiana does, which they shoot an unbelievable percentage from long range. Part of that because I thought it was pretty poor defense from the Knicks, or at least in their coverage a lot of ways. Communication, what else? Turnovers. That was the biggest issue that I think I had, was the turnovers that just continuously led to leak out points. The Knicks continuously didn't get back. That was something that was taught to me as a youth basketball player, let alone high school, college, so on and so forth, which was you need to have at least one person getting back, especially when the shot goes up. The Pacers did a phenomenal job leaking out, and Tyrese Halliburton, and not just him, the conglomerate of guards for Indiana did a phenomenal job all series looking up, pushing the pace, and it's almost poetic in a sense where Obi Toppin, who did not fit the New York Knicks play style, did not necessarily fit the way that New York wanted to play, he fits completely with Indiana in those leakouts, providing opportunities. And when he does that, he was very, very productive. It was overall, the Pacers won that first game, which, like I said, completely changed the tenor. They did a phenomenal job to take game 2. But because they took game 1, everything else was changed from there. The Knicks put themselves in a place where there was no room for error, and that's what that second half was filled of. To get back to your other question as to why the Knicks kind of let go of the rope in the second half, is that, the attention to detail just went off the wayside at the end, where the discussion on the coverages, you could see at times confusion on pick and rolls. You could see the turnovers consistently creating points every time the Knicks would make a run. The Pistons, goodness gracious, sorry, I'm in 90s mode. The Pacers would have a response right back. So it was a very fun series. I thought that it was kind of like we got into at the start into the preview. It was a very evenly matched series in a lot of ways, but the Pacers, the way that they are built, are a load to handle, and that's why you see them come through the Eastern Conference as the champions. I mean, they lost 4 total games through 3 rounds. That's, let's just say this. That's less than OKC did in the West. So a very, very fun series, a disappointing end, a lot to dig into for the New York Knicks this offseason, but I'll spare that conversation for another segment, another day, and allow my friend over here to celebrate a little bit.
I can't believe it. I don't even know if I should give him this camera switch mode as Michael Escaro making his way into our studios here. And if you guys are watching on YouTube, kind of peeped into the background of Paul while he had the floor, but I guess that he is decked out, not just in entirely like a hat and a Pacers hat and t-shirt, but also got like the what style of glasses do you call this, Paul? Like the like it's the type that the baseball players wear, but I think there's like a term or like the actual
so they
type
look
of
like
glasses.
Oakleys, but they're not Oakleys.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what they're
It's
actually
the
called.
You brand.
But yeah,
so.
I know exactly what you're talking
But it's
about
like
because
the
I used
style.
to wear them.
It's the style, and that's entirely like filling out his outfit here for Michael Liscaro. I mean, this guy's acting like they already won the NBA championship over here, but. Hey, actually, you know what? But I did say that I wanted there to be a bit more smack talk because I thought you guys were a bit too cordial last week when we were heading into this series. So at least now, Michael is just embracing.
I should probably turn on his microphone.
I don't know. You're the ones that has the control, so you could decide not to.
But I am gracious in losing just as I am in winning most times. So I will turn on his microphone.
No, Paul, you have to give credit to the New York Knicks. They came to play. Tibbs made adjustments. He played the bench. But, as they say, it takes a whole team. And the sum of the parts for the Pacers is just greater than the sum of the parts for the Knicks. There was 12 players, if not 13, that had legitimate minutes in this series that contributed to this win. I know Knicks fans and Paul and everybody that is, it's easy. The thing with basketball, it's easy to tear down the losing team because they lost. But no, sometimes you're going to lose. Sometimes you're going to get better. Just like Pascal Siakam said to Greg Doyle of the Indy Star, sometimes that's the NBA. Sometimes that just happens, and shout out to, I don't know if you guys went into the TNT part yet, but shout out to Ernie Johnson in the post game, telling Pascal, at least you don't have to hear questions about you guys playing harder anymore. But yeah, the Pacers, they did it, and that's why it just feels so awesome to see this through. Because there's a lot of Pacers alumni that have been in the building for this run. I think this is probably one of the first times we've seen Danny Granger come back. He was a very bright spot.
There is a throwback. Holy.
In a dark time after the Malice at the Palace, where, Ron Artest gets suspended the whole year. Reggie Miller retires. We see Jermaine O'Neal. I know he's the fan base loves him. People want his jersey number retired. And then we see players like Steven Jackson, who I particularly don't like, but he's wanting to support Rick Smits. Normally, another throwback name. It feels like we have like the Avengers run. We have Caitlin Clark. We have, Tyrese Halliburton's dad in the suite getting a hero's welcome coming down to the stands, and it's a real testament to, this team. Cool, if you may, I do have more props in my little bag if I can bring it out. But it's part of my whole spiel. Give me a second.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, I don't know how much props we can get. Like allow. By the way, I must say your flag and your Pacer stuff are not going up in here unless they win the actual NBA Finals. I'm just gonna say that. I gave you your LA Rams flag over there that is next to Paul's Jets flag in the little producer
Two
area.
Super Bowl winners over here.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yes, the Paul George trade. That's a good number, by the way, though. That's like the best number with the Paul George 24.
A lot of people, they say, oh, all these Pacers fans are bandwagoners. No, I'm not a bandwagoner. I've been there from the beginning. But yeah, this team, man, it's amazing, and it's testament to president of basketball operations, Kevin Pritchard, when he took over for Larry Bird. And Larry Bird,
Peyton's dad?
Great,
Kidding, sorry.
Great coach, but he made some questionable decisions from a general manager standpoint for the Pacers. But, about 12 years ago or 13 years ago, I did buy Kevin Pritchard's book. It's called Help the Helper. And it just goes to show the type of culture that we are building with the Indiana Pacers and why,
Michael, the member of the Indiana Pacers that we are building there.
Yes,
16.
They're signing him to a one day.
And it's amazing to watch. And the thing is, like, with OKC, they might be the Giants in this, but this is America, and we love a great underdog story. And I think OKC opened up minus 800. I think Pacers are plus 500. People think it's going to be a sweep. People think it's almost the OKC Invitational, but people were saying that it was going to be OKC and Cleveland. Well, guess what? We eliminated Cleveland. But yeah, I don't know.
Speaking of our Kyle, I couldn't tell at all that you were so ecstatic. Our Kyle Galdera actually calling it Thunder in 5, so he is going the complete opposite way as pushing the Pacers there to as the underdog that they are. In Game 1, though, in a few days, the Thunder are your 9.5-point favorite. Odds via BetMGM. Pacers plus 310 on the money line, and total set at 230.5. For all of our friends that are very much in tune with what's coming up. I'm curious of our Vegas texter that usually chimes in what he thinks this series is going to shake out. Hey, and don't be... I was the one, I think, like early on when this... it was like maybe I don't know if it was heading into the conference finals or right before that, and the Pacers were like had the second longest odds to win it all. And I'm like, you know what? That looks like a very interesting sprinkle.
I thought
because
the Pacers odds before the
it
Eastern
was
Conference Finals were ridiculous. Like
they
if
were
we're
giving
being
the Knicks
totally
a lot
honest,
of credit. Like
not only that, I just thought not only giving the Knicks a lot of credit, I thought they were completely discounting what the Pacers did in the first 2 rounds. I mean, the Cavs all see. This is what is frustrating. This will be my last point on the NBA. What's frustrating about so many NBA fans is like you see these people discount the Cavs as like a weak number 1 team. They're like, oh, they're like the 2015 Hawks or whatever they were, the 60-win Hawks. I'm like, no. That's a good Cavs team. The Pacers have been one of the best teams in basketball since like January, and like by far. So I thought it was such a ridiculous number by Vegas. Whatever.
But I think just the irony to kind of wrap this up for just a little bit, and we got to take a break. But you guys know we keep mentioning Paul George. Basically, Paul George, obviously, first with the Indiana Pacers. So for Indiana, I mean, Paul George led to Oladipo and Sabonis, and Sabonis led to Halliburton.
Always shout out the Magic.
Always shout out to the Orlando Magic.
The Magic also helped build the Pacers.
But for OKC, as we know, Oladipo and Sabonis led to George, and George to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and the LA Clippers, who had their hand in that, of course, where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was. Clippers have not made it to the NBA Finals yet, and neither has Paul George since all of this was going about. But now you have 2 teams with OKC and Indiana.
Conference finals.
No, I don't think so. Not even. Yeah, you're right. They haven't even made the conference final. I mean, yeah, Paul George.
That trade looks worse and worse every day.
But it looks good for the 2 teams that are in it. All right, got to take a break. We'll be right back to continue our NBA discussion and get into more of the NBA on TNT as that era has come to an end when we come back on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network.
Stuck in traffic? That's Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Kulei Agbayani, Paul Brecht, and Michael Liscaro on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network. Continuing our NBA conversation, we'll get into more of, like, I guess, our early predictions of the NBA Finals coming up probably in hour number 2. But I did kind of want to, reminisce a little bit. As we know, NBA on TNT, as we know it, is all POW. But inside the NBA, fortunately, we'll move over. Well, like I said earlier, fortunately, maybe unfortunately, I don't know. Move over to NBA or ESPN television. And I say fortunately because, I don't really care for Stephen A. or Kendrick Perkins or a lot of their NBA people that they have.
NBA coverage has greatly fallen off.
Horrendous. Yeah, it's so bad. And to be fair, I don't watch NBA on TNT as much as I did or Inside the NBA just because it started to get a little too goofy for my liking at parts. But at least if you're going to tune into Inside the NBA, you're going to get something. You're going to get some laughs. You're going to have a good time. Like when you tune into the ESPN coverage of the NBA, you're just like,
I don't feel like I'm watching
anything.
A basketball show.
Yeah, I don't get anything. I don't get entertained. Kendrick Perkins, half the time you can't even understand what he's saying. And then he pronounces my guy, Christian Brown's name wrong. It's because it's like, oh my gosh, he says Braun. And I'm like, you're a professional. What are you doing? Anyways, fortunately, the NBA on TNT is just moving networks and going on over. But before I kind of ask you guys some of your favorite takeaways from that, Ernie Johnson, of course, longtime host of Inside the NBA on TNT, wanted to share with everybody in the audience in case they didn't watch it, because there are some of these sign-offs from the other hosts, like Shaq and Charles. I don't think we can play that on air without bleeping it all.
Not yet. Probably.
Not yet.
We gotta
bleep it out a little bit.
Very early in the morning.
But no, Ernie Johnson as his usual persona on that show, because he is always the one to try to rein in especially Chuck and Shaq most of the time, and then Kenny is just kind of, he's like the
Kenny's
in-between. He's always going to be like Kenny Johnson. Kenny. Yeah, he's always going to be Kenny. But no, here is Ernie Johnson's sign-off yesterday of Inside the NBA.
Take your time.
Several years ago, I wrote a book called Unscripted, and I asked people to embrace the unscripted, not fear the unscripted. If I had written the script, the NBA and TNT would be together forever. It's not going to happen. But while I was disappointed and I was sad, I was not bitter. We know how business works. Gratitude is the operative word for me. Grateful that, since 1989, I've been with this company. No matter what you call the company, I'll always be Turner. And I'm grateful that I work with you guys. I'm grateful for all of the relationships we've built professionally and personally through the years. You just don't realize that until you see people here on the road and say, hey, this is probably going to be it. And you think back to all the good times you had. So I'm grateful for that, and also grateful that we have members of our crew who are going to go work at NBC or work at Amazon. And you know how they got those jobs? Because their resume says NBA on TNT. So thank you. We have been honored to do this. And we look forward. The four of us, as you've already heard, the four of us are going to be together. Our production crew is going to be together. It's going to be that same bunch. We're still going to be shooting that show in Atlanta. It's just going to air somewhere else. And so the craziness that you've seen, the nonsense and the foolishness and the top-notch basketball analysis, all of that stuff's going to be on. It's going to be on ESPN or ABC next year, not on TNT. For that, we're sad. But I'm proud to say for the last time, thanks for watching us. It's the NBA on TNT.
Before we go.
the NBA on TNT. And
Before
again,
we go, nope.
no. And
Nope.
because I think to finish that, it was basically Shaq and saying, before we go, we got to do a mic drop, in which only he and Chuck did. And then Ernie Johnson didn't, like, he turned around to the crowd. And then I don't think Kenny, like, did the mic drop either. So, or was it Kenny that did the mic drop? There's only two of them, Shaq and somebody else, that did the mic drop, and that was kind of the ending of that. But again, Ernie Johnson, and it's not going away. I see Felipe Hernandez commenting on our YouTube saying, I'll miss Shaq and Charles. They'll still be part of it by all accounts, but it'll just be moved to a different network. From what I've heard and read, they will keep their production crew together, that talent crew together. It'll just be a bit different, and it'll probably look a little different as it's another network. But hopefully ESPN will be hands off-ish, like they've been for the Pat McAfee show, as we've seen. And did Rich Eisen move over there yet? I was going to ask you if they've been hands off with the Rich Eisen show yet.
I have not picked up on what the entire move has been. I did see that he's moving back to ESPN. Rich has a little bit of a different relationship, though, because he started his career there. So I would imagine that there might be, and also Rich is amongst the, the most popular journal.
Yeah.
So I think it's feasible to think that they would be a little more hands-off, understanding the success of the NBA on TNT's structure a lot of times.
Yeah, so don't worry. They're not going anywhere. You'll still be able to see them just on a different network. As the NBA, though, moves over, you'll see play-by-play stuff on NBC, which Paul had mentioned during the break. He's very excited about that. Not only that, but I think their broadcast team is pretty set, and Michael Jordan is actually going to be a significant contributor to their content and the broadcast on NBC. And part of it is because he is kind of tired of the old guard bashing on the new guard, so he wants to really have a hand in how this transition will go. So that's exciting for a lot of basketball fans. So he's going to be that special contributor. Mike Tirico and Noah Eagle, a former play-by-play guy for the Los Angeles Clippers that you used to hear him right here on HSRN before Carlo took over. Jamal Crawford, Reggie Miller will be analysts. In-studio analysts, Carmelo Anthony and Vince Carter. Woo woo, baby.
A couple of really good basketball minds. Like, unironic, I know, like, I have a bias for Melo, but if you listen to his podcast, he's another one of those old heads who, like, old heads, crazy to say that now, who, like, actually still likes talking about hoops and, like, doesn't absolutely destroy the league now. Like, I appreciate that type of analysis, because are there things that are wrong? Are there things that need to be called out at times? Do teams play stupid sometimes? Are there? Absolutely. But also, I want to hear about that. I want to have the basketball conversation. I don't want totally unprepared. And that's what it felt like it got to at some points over the years. So I'm really excited about NBC's coverage. I really hope ESPN steps up to the plate, because I think their coverage has fallen off quite a bit over the years. And listen, at the end of the day, competition is good, and sometimes you need an unfortunate event like this, losing the NBA on TNT, to kick everybody's butt into gear a little bit and be like, hey, people will have an appetite for this, but they don't have an appetite for the way that you're doing it currently, or they have an appetite for something else. I have loved this show for many, many years, though. I am very sad it didn't get a Game 7. Sadly.
You're sad because
I'm sad for
you're
them.
Totally sad about the crew
Clearly,
not getting a Game 7, of course.
But no, I will say this as well. I love EJ. Ernie is a pro's pro of pro. I mean, if you could talk about an idol in this industry, that's one of them that you should look up to. So I was glad that they did at least have a send-off, because that was important. They've done a lot for a lot of basketball fans over the years.
Yeah, I do want to give a shout out who watched the documentary Inside the NBA. I think they did like a Last Dance kind of documentary. It premiered after Game 4, and I thought it was going to be like maybe like a 15-minute thing, but it was long. It's like, okay, let me not stop watching, and I'll give it its due. But Paul, you mentioned Game 7, and I got to give shout out to the Indy crowd at the end there. They were still kind of hanging around in that lobby area of Gainbridge Fieldhouse.
It looked.
And I thought Ernie was almost going to choke up when they broke out into a TNT chant, and that he kind of had to do a turn back. And I'm not knocking the Knicks, but Paul, Knicks fans aren't going to do that. They're going to be out on the streets doing their thing.
I think some would. I think some Knicks fans are in it for the flash. Yeah. I think some are in it for the whatever. Then also, I will say this: what else is there to do in Indy?
Well, plus, I don't know where in Madison Square Garden they would have that kind of post game.
No, they're so terrible about it. Like, with all love and respect to my Knicks, they're so terrible about setting up media. They put the media up in like the sky. It is so bad. All broadcast, the radio broadcast is up in the sky. TNT, you'll see them. They're up on the Skyview Bridge. It's not my case.
And I know we're in radio, so we won't have we are on YouTube, but there was that kind of ending segment where they were just kind of showing crew photos throughout the years, and they saved Craig Sager and last, and they had Craig Sager, like him interviewing Kobe Bryant, and that's just kind of that was kind of like through the heartstrings because they're no longer with us. But yeah, it was a good send off. I know Shaq was giving Ernie credit for making Reggie be the one to hand the Eastern Conference title, and again, Reggie. He's going to be a homer, but
he should be. He's a former Pacer legend.
This was the last thing from TNT that he got to do, and it was a great moment to send off one of their longest play-by-play color commentators.
And the crazy thing is, like, even bringing up Reggie, right? Like we were just saying, it was emotional, but not as emotional because everyone is still like Reggie Miller's still going to be around on NBC. Like, you still got. It's kind of like when we moved studios, right? It was bittersweet. It was like, oh, I can't believe this is where we started. This is like our first home, all of that stuff.
And then you get a couple of weeks
and we're like, yeah, well, we like it over here too, and like it's so much better. But there's still that emotion that's tied to everything, and we weren't even there for over 20 years, right?
So this is over a quarter century type thing.
Fortunately, all of those guys we will still see. But you're right. And then of course, like you said, the Kobe and Craig part is just like that will ultimately like tug at the heartstrings for sure.
I think the emotional thing is the cast and crew, and those are the people that don't get the credit that they deserve. TV, you just see people that's on the screen or hear them, but like people behind the cameras, people that are in the production meetings. In the documentary, there's like a lot of people in those production meetings. There's hair and makeup people that you grow attached to. I know over another network that their hair and makeup people and their stars, there's some controversy with that department over there at FS1. But that's what really chokes up Ernie Johnson, because he was loyal to TNT because he wanted to keep the crew together.
Yep.
Now the crew, they're gonna all be in different places, right? Some will go to Amazon, some will be in ESPN, some will be at NBC. But one thing that Ernie Johnson says, I can't remember where he said it, when he said it, but when you see on the resume, it says NBA on TNT, or you work on TNT, and that pretty much carries you. And that's something that I think it shows what a great culture that organization is, and what a great culture our organization is going to be, because, we are building, and we're not coming to F around, as Shaq said.
On that note, we're going to take a break. When we come back, though, we're going to talk about another end of an era. A couple of days ago, actually yesterday, was the official, when you had to officially announce or submit your, departure from the Mountain West Conference. So we are moving into a new era in college football with obviously everything going on, but it's now a new era, as yesterday was the start of the official end of the Mountain West Conference as we know it. So we're going to talk about that when we come back on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network.
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to all of you, the beautifulest of all the beautiful people. It's Wake Up in the Den. I'm Ku'ulei Agbayani alongside Paul Brecht and Michael Lascaro on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM, AM 760, hawaiisportsradio.com, and streaming live on our YouTube channel today and every single Monday. So thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure you like and subscribe. All right, we've been talking a lot about the NBA. We'll get back into some NBA conversation, including our early predictions of the NBA Finals. Also some fun, I guess, topics that I kind of thought about that I think it would be fun for us to chit-chat about. But we were talking about the Inside the NBA on TNT coming to an end and officially the end of an era as everything is moving on over either to NBC or ESPN/ABC and a couple of streaming platforms. But I did want to get into something else that was the end of an era as we talk about college football. And the weird thing is, I don't think I've seen official announcements outside of Boise State yesterday, so I got to kind of do some digging. But with the Mountain West schools, just to remind everybody, the 5 Mountain West schools in Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Utah State, they had to submit or officially submit their departure and officially resign from the league by yesterday to avoid a substantial buyout and all of this stuff, all the financial things. So the only one I saw so far, again, is the Boise State athletic director tweeting about it yesterday that they did officially submit their resignation. Yeah, bye, Boise. The other schools, it's fine if you stay, but Boise, peace out. Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Don't let the door hit you where the Lord split you, right?
So again, it had to be delivered yesterday, or they could see the exit fees double from an estimated $18 million to $36 million. And the exit fee buyout with more than a year's notice is 3 times already the annual member distribution, which is around $6 million per school. That doubles to 6 times the annual distribution with less than a year's notice. So hence, that's why they had to announce their resignation yesterday. So that was the deadline. It also comes with a non-refundable, it sounds so weird thinking about like the $1 million and stuff, where it's like it also comes with a non-refundable $5,000 wire transfer payment. So
yeah, obviously, of course,
a multi-million dollars, and you got to make sure you pay a small itty-bitty percentage in the $5,000. So meanwhile, the Mountain West and the Pac-12, they entered into a legal mediation earlier this month, or I guess last month, over the $145 million the Pac-12 and its future members contractually owe the Mountain West, including $90 million in exit fees, $18 million each for the 5 departing schools, plus $55 million in poaching penalties. The Pac-2 of Oregon State and Washington State agreed to when they first signed like that scheduling agreement back in 2023 as part of the whole football, just so that they would have teams to play. So with all that being said, bye to the 5 schools, at least officially bye to Boise State. But again, I'm still have to do some digging to see or follow the Twitter landscape that all of these 5 or the rest of the schools officially resigned from the Mountain West. And we will see where the mediation with the 2 conferences ends up, because a part of that agreement, or part of to kind of remind everybody for all of the schools, including especially Air Force and UNLV, for them to stay, they were guaranteed X amount of money that the Mountain West was accounting for to get out of the massive amount of fees that the Pac-12 would owe to the Mountain West. So all of this stuff is kind of interesting to follow, just because it will determine not only how much those top 2 schools who are getting the higher percentage in Air Force and UNLV, but also how much the University of Hawaii could get. And that's kind of the major thing of the University of Hawaii announcing that they were officially staying here with the Mountain West. And of course, as we know, bringing all of the rest of their programs with it, aside from a few of the Olympic sports. So that is going to be huge for the University of Hawaii, as we know, trying to find as much money as we can heading into the new era of college sports with the NIL payment and revenue distribution or revenue share with the student athletes. So that's why a lot of this and the legal stuff and negotiations and the mediation is very like detrimental or in determining what is going to happen with the University of Hawaii and how much money UH is essentially going to get out of all of this, and what will to guarantee all of the schools are staying, of course, and then obviously inviting in a couple of new schools in UTEP and NIU for football, and then all of this, and we are in the midst of our athletics director situation. So there's a lot going on, folks, for sure.
It never fails to be this type of time of year when everything else slows
like
down.
End of an era, and yet here we go. New future, here we come. Just like inside the NBA.
Exactly. And you know, it could be definitely really exciting for everybody involved with these teams leaving. Like you mentioned, it opens up new opportunity for Hawaii, new opportunity for many other programs to come on in. I'm excited for it. It does seem that the majority of them, if not all of them, did officially do it, right? I saw Fresno State's also post out there, but I was looking to confirm all the other ones. But yeah, it seems to be that way. But yeah, big time moves, change has happened. We've talked about it a bunch though at this point where it's like I almost forgot like it hadn't happened yet. Like I didn't, but it was like one of those where I was like, oh yeah, that's right. They still have to do the process part of it all. And it's the world of leaks and whatnot these days, right?
Yeah.
You know, I know you guys had the kind of the sentiment where like, you know, see you later guys, but you know, if these schools weren't leaving the Mountain West in the capacity that they were, I don't know if Hawaii ourselves gets an invite to be a full-time member, which I think in the long run and for the health of our the university financially and long term, it's kind of what Hawaii needs, because we were still paying what's the travel word? Subsidies, right? I mean,
good work, team.
Yeah, subsidies. Paul's use of the word tenor was like, oh, we have bringing out the dictionary today. But yeah,
we're stepping it up.
These schools, congrats. You know, go ahead, and you know, for Hawaii, we are moving forward. I think one thing with the importance of the date of June 1st and is because you mentioned, you know, the Pac-2, Pac-12, whatever it is now, Pac-7, it's still in that legal process. Well, it also, because it's June 1st, it also guarantees that UNLV and Air Force are still in the Mountain West for this year at least, right? Because you need to give 12 months notice in advance, right? Which is why yesterday and today is kind of the big day, because we are announcing our intent to leave formally. But
funny process.
Or risk paying like even more money than you were already anticipating to.
Yeah, but the Mountain West, it's gonna be great. I like the different time zones. And it's now
agreed.
We're looking at football now, baseball, softball, and all the other sports. You know, basketball. It remains to see how we're gonna be competitive. But it's kind of cool. You know, I guess we get to watch games earlier in the day. So you know,
one thing about me, I love getting up early.
Yes. Oh no, not like early in the day. Earlier, like in the afternoon.
I'm only kidding.
Yeah.
Continue.
Well, I mean, games at NIU will be somewhat early. I mean, they're like Chicago's 5 hours ahead, so any games at NIU might be the earliest portion of the football schedule in terms of conference season when that starts, and then UTEP is right there. So yeah, it's like a little bit early. Yeah. Early for Michael, anyways.
Well, basketball. I mean, when they have like basketball and stuff like that, you know, maybe we can like actually have like post game like YouTube shows or post game podcasts and getting our takes from it.
That's true. When it's not in the middle of the night, it's just in the middle of the day. I think it's a lot more convenient.
I think it's great for the university. And
positive Michael.
We are going forward. You know, positive Michael is easy to be because we're winning.
I didn't say it was a bad thing.
No. I was just going to make he beat me too. I was going to make
Pacers
a Pacers
are winning,
joke.
And the stadium will be built in 2028.
I don't know if I'm there with you, but I hope it is.
I didn't say the move was a bad thing. Paul and I were just saying peace out to Boise State, especially because clearly they are way ahead of the game when it comes to keeping their football program
way I felt when
as
all the good
competitive
players
as it
left
is.
from the Big West for men's basketball.
Yeah.
When Keontae Jones or whatever hit the transfer portal, bye. Have fun.
See you later. So we'll continue to keep you guys updated with all of these moves. And again, just to remind everybody, because and something else I saw on Twitter too, that this has been rumored for a long time, ever since the start of this whole conference realignment, at least specifically to these two conferences, is that Texas State is potentially one that will go to the Pac-12. We heard that school floated around before, going either to the Mountain West or to the Pac-12. Now it seems like they could be going over to the Pac-12, which will be interesting. As to remind everyone, GJ Kinney is the head football coach over there and has done has a lot of success so far, formerly here under Coach Todd Graham. So that could mean a lot. And I think their volleyball team, their women's volleyball team, was actually pretty decent. So we will see, because now both these entities and these conferences are shopping around their media rights deals. But and Hawaii still needs to figure out what they're going to do for this upcoming sports season. We haven't seen anything confirmed in terms of any type of one-year deal with Spectrum Sports or anything else. So this summer is going to be interesting. Again, we will hopefully potentially see the new athletics director named maybe this week, it feels like the inclination is. And then from there, we will see what happens with the television deal and everything like that. So we will try to keep you guys updated, of course, as we always do. But we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to pose this question for you guys, because I know it's been talked around. And Paul, you and I had a slight discussion about this on Friday.
Started to.
Now that the end of an era, not just for the Mountain West, NBA on TNT, but also just the NBA players in general, / the NBA superstars as we know them, like your LeBron James and your Steph Curry, their time is kind of coming to an end. And do we even have any current superstars in the NBA in terms of the young ones? Like, do you guys consider SGA one? Is Tyrese Halliburton a superstar by true definition, or what you yourself as NBA fans consider as a superstar caliber type of player? So we're going to take a break, and if you guys have any thoughts on that, feel free to chime in on text or our YouTube chat. We'll be back on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
It's Wake Up in the Den. Ku'ulei Agbayani, Paul Brecht, and Michael Liscaro on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network. All right, going back to our NBA discussion, but more a fun topic I wanted to bring up for you guys is that we see, again, the end of an era when it comes to who I consider superstars in LeBron James and Steph Curry. And even when we talk about someone like maybe Kawhi Leonard and them, well, Kawhi is not as old as some of the other guys, but they're like superstars, right? As people that I always thought of as superstars. I feel like there's like different levels. You got superstars, you have stars, and then you have top 5 players, and all of them can't be the same thing. Like, I wouldn't consider your top 5 players to all be superstars, if that kind of makes sense. So it kind of, because we saw some of this debate where it comes to like Tyrese Halliburton and stuff like that. And I started to really think about it as someone who's watched the NBA, especially since the 90s. That's the era I grew up with. So obviously the Michael Jordan era, and of course, Shaq, woohoo, when he was wearing a better jersey. They're the best jersey he's ever worn in his career, being at the Orlando Magic. So to me, I'm like, obviously Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Shaq, like you had, like, to me, they are superstar status. And I don't know if I consider any of some of the young players right now superstars per se. They are top 5 players. We talk about Jokic, obviously top 5 player, Luka Doncic, a top 5 player. But I don't know, in my opinion, if they have completely reached what I would consider superstar status. And when I was thinking about it and we kind of were talking through it, Paul, like to me and personally, as again, just a fan of the game itself, is that the superstar is kind of like the blend of top player in terms of talent on a successful team and a highlight reel, essentially. And so that's where I kind of am going back and forth with some of these really good players. Like, again, like I know with Michael and Tyrese Halliburton, to me, definitely a top player, a.k.a. Aaron Hunkenclader. But I don't know if I consider them superstars yet. And like Nikola Jokic, obviously one of the top 3, definitely, maybe even top 2 current players right now, and won an NBA championship. But is he like has that superstar highlight reel type of play? Like he doesn't exactly. And again, this is all opinion based. That's where I'm like, I don't like.
That's the toughest part of this conversation.
Like I feel like Victor Wembanyama could be a superstar, but he's been injured and his team hasn't produced yet. So when they start producing, I'm like, okay, maybe he could be the next quote unquote superstar, in my personal opinion.
I think it's really difficult to find any common ground on this because I think it varies so much person to person. You and I talked a little bit about this where I think we do have superstars. I think we just don't realize it because we're such an Americanized like thought process where, I mean, I think if you polled Serbians, they'd probably think Nikola Jokic is a superstar. That's probably one of the most popular people in that entire country. You know, and that's part of the conversation that comes into it as well, where I've heard some people say superstar means that people who don't watch basketball know them. And I think that's
a good definition too.
I think that is a fair way to think about it as well, where it's like, okay, that makes it a very unique honor to have. It's a very exclusive club. I don't know if I feel that way, though, because I feel like at any given time, you can have a bunch of different superstars. A bunch might be a stretch.
I think you can have a bunch of stars.
So, and
I think Nikola Jokic is a star of the league, but is he a superstar?
So, and that is the thing, is like, what makes a superstar? Is it the fact that they win? Is it the fact that they put up highlights? Is it the fact that they're marketable? Because would you call Kawhi Leonard a superstar? He has a championship. He has multiple championships. He has multiple finals MVPs. He has the accolades. But I think you wouldn't, like, half of America, more than half of America, wouldn't realize if he was walking down the street, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, does that make him a superstar because he is a superstar basketball player? Or are you a superstar that transcends the sport itself? And that, I think, is where you have to distinguish between the two of, like, are we talking just simply players who are superstar players, or are we talking the superstars of the sport in terms of who grows the popularity in the entire world? That's why I don't necessarily disagree with you with Victor Wembanyama. When you talk about him, that's a guy that transcends just the basketball conversation. It's Wemby. He's an alien type of thing. He's a 7'4" freak who also is really good and also is marketable and blah, 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 blah. So I think it's an interesting conversation. I don't actually have an answer for you. I've been trying to think about it since we talked about it on Friday. I have no idea.
Well, for the record, Tyrese Halliburton isn't a superstar yet, so and that's coming from the Pacers fan. But I mean, I know we're gonna have to go to a break soon, but I do want to call cap on Koo saying Nikola isn't a superstar. This text from May 13th from Kule Agbayani. Whoa, LOL.
That's so funny.
Just when Nikola couldn't do anything more amazing. Wow,
The
because it's
receipts
amazing, but
king.
also so nonchalant, which makes it more amazing. Cool, you talking about not having a highlight reel. He does everything special on a nightly basis.
That was one text.
It's multiple.
That was a pretty good receipt, Paul.
That was a good receipt. But he kind of worried me where I actually dropped the thing. He's a superstar.
I was going to say, for a second, I thought you were going to get it with the, he's a superstar.
But I just said, he's a star. Like, I think there's a different level. And I kind of liked
we're arguing semantics at that point.
But I think I like that definition where it's like people know these players if they're not even really basketball fans per se. So I kind of like that. Like I said, you can be a top 5 player, you can be a star, but I think superstar status is kind of like how I don't like it how sometimes it gets thrown around, like GOAT gets thrown around all the time. I'm like, I feel like you got to get to a certain level if you're going to be considered a superstar. Anyways, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Put your phone
to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ule Agbayani on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den, hour number 2. I'm Ku'ule Agbayani alongside Paul Braxton, Michael Liscaro on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM, AM 760, hawaiisportsradio.com, and streaming live on our YouTube channel today and this and every Monday as we are live on the radio anyways, weekdays from 8 to 10. So thank you guys for tuning in, whether it be on our YouTube channel or even on demand. We appreciate you all so much. So you can text in on the conversation at 808-888-KGU1. That's 808-888-5481, or chime in on the live chat. So shout out to everyone that's tuning in right now. Be sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already to our YouTube channel. We appreciate you guys. All right. Want to kind of, we'll get back to more NBA conversation as we ended up hour number 1, just talking a little bit about what makes a superstar in the NBA. So if you kind of have an opinion on that, again, feel free to chime in on the conversation when we get back to it. One little tidbit here, because we did get a text from our good friend over there in Vegas saying that need more preseason NBA at UH Arena. Curry, Draymond, Harden, Pacers defense weaker than OKC. Oh, he's chiming in on even our NBA conversation. Take over or OKC in the finals, GL, aka good luck. So yeah, we will get into some of our NBA finals predictions coming up on this show, or coming up in hour number 2, as well as some of our fun banter with the NBA. But guys, I did want to get back into some local conversation, as we did see an interesting tweet come out over the weekend. We have been talking extensively about the athletics director, and of course everybody, like, that's kind of the big news that will hopefully drop this week. As we know, the finalists were doing their in-person interviews last week. We kind of talked about from a reliable source that there are 4 finalists, and all of them are quote in quotations from the mainland. So we were kind of speculating and brainstorming. All right, there are only 2 out of the 4 that I personally could 100% confirm were 2 finalists of the 4. I know there are a ton of other names that have been thrown out there, but the only 2 that I for sure have been able to confirm are George Killebrew and Wes Mallett from UC Riverside. Those are the only 2. We know that Elliott's been thrown out there as one of the quote-unquote favorites as well, alongside Killebrew, and there's been other names like the San Diego State guy, Moosebrugger, and then Jim Donovan, I know, is one of them. But out of all of those, I am telling you guys right now that I have personally only able to confirm those 2 names. And then over the weekend, you got Warrior All Access, who Paul and I were talking about when they drop some kind of bomb. Like, I trust a lot of their inside sources. Like, when they put stuff out, they're not just blowing smoke or whatnot. I very much, like I said, I very much actually feel and believe that they got this information from a reliable source. And they tweeted out a couple of days ago on Saturday that sources among the finalists for the UH Manoa athletic director position is a sitting WAC AD, one who is not located in Utah. So that was kind of a surprising bomb, I guess you could say, that nobody really anticipated or expected, including us, and according to a lot of fans that have been trying to, find out, like, who are these finalists, yada, yada, yada. Because out of all the names, and even Mike Whitman putting the names out there, none of those are currently sitting WAC ADs. And not even, like, so that was kind of the big bomb. And we kind of did some of our digging. And yeah, guys, like, how are we feeling about just that tidbit of information that was dropped by Warrior All Access? Again, shout out to them, because I know that they have definitely heard from a credible source and would not put that information out if it did not come from someone credible.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I'll put it this way. I think having multiple options is always good. After doing a little bit of research into some of the WAC people is so funny to say, just completely out of context, into some of the athletic directors and some of the administrators in the WAC, I think there would be some pretty good options, at least in terms of the experience that they can bring over in terms of having the ability of working within a climate, working within a conference, working within a size of a school that somewhat similarly has challenges like Hawaii does, and unique challenges at that. I'm curious to see who it is, but it certainly is one that made me kind of stop what I was doing this weekend when I saw it and just start to do a little bit of a deep dive. But it's intriguing. We've said it multiple times, Ku. I want to feel inspired by this hire, but I also want to feel like they did their due diligence. I want to feel like they actually left no stone unturned. I want them to go through and look and try and find the best person for this job, because we are entering such a critical juncture in this process of college athletics for the University of Hawaii. So I'm glad that they're continuing to leave no stone unturned. And I also I know we talk a lot about being plugged in. I know we talk a lot about, we can't share everything. I like the fact that not everything gets leaked right away. I like the fact that sometimes there is still a little bit under the surface that gets to go under the radar. I think that's not always the worst thing. I know transparency is like the name of the game nowadays, and it is important for the most part, but we're getting it. Just a little bit of a delay. It's cool. I don't like it.
By the way, just real quick, in case I know people are wondering if they're listening and watching and haven't been able to look it up yet, there are 9 schools in the WAC right now. Again, obviously, we're very familiar with that conference as being part of it for so long with the University of Hawaii. 3 of those are from Utah. So again, that cancels it out according to the WWA
so
tweet.
A third of them just right off.
Yeah, not from Utah. So these are the schools not from Utah that are currently in the WAC: Abilene Christian University, Cal Baptist, Grand Canyon, which is interesting because they will be a non-football member in the Mountain West coming up in not this season but next season. Seattle U, Tarleton State, and UT Arlington are the schools that are not in Utah that are currently in the WAC.
Yeah, I think more All Access dropped this news like maybe around lunchtime, and I know Ku had posted a screenshot of the schools, the possible schools, and I mentioned lunchtime because this was right before the Knicks and Pacers games on Saturday. So I really didn't have much time to look into these candidates. I know Paul said,
I was very nervous, so I made sure to distract myself before the game as much as I could.
Obviously, when Ku put out the list, I'm gonna go in alphabetical order, and being that there was a game going on in an hour or pretty soon, that I looked up Abilene Christian University, and apparently everyone in the WAC, you don't have athletic directors, you have vice president of athletics, and reading up on Zach Lassiter from Abilene Christian University, he's a pretty solid guy. I like that he's able to bring
his last name is
Lassiter.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. That's all I needed.
I don't know, you guys.
It's pretty close. It's pretty close, but okay, continue. Sorry.
I said this to the guys. Paul was the one that busted that out in our group chat, and I was like, "You're right, Paul. I think that guy should already get points deducted for having a name that's too close to last."
He needs to earn extra bonus points.
So he really better be good, Michael. But continue.
Continue. Give us his resume.
Tell us that he can make up for this. Should he be the one that is the current sitting WAC AD / vice president of athletics, or whatever fancy title that they have for their AD?
Well, on the list that Ku tweeted, right? Abilene Christian University is a private university, not for profit. So the fact that he was able to, I think he got like $60 million or whatever, and he was able to add programs to the university. I think he added women's golf during his tenure. So a non-revenue sport, and then I think that's impressive, and that's what University of Hawaii needs, And so if the University of Hawaii was looking at Zach Lassiter, he would be a phenomenal choice. Now, I know we talked about names, right? Make sure it's not close to Lassiter or Lassner, but
so
there is another.
It is funny.
There is another vice president of athletics that I think if they were the athletic director with their last name, I don't know if it would go well in University of Hawaii. But it's from the University of Texas Arlington Athletics. I won't say his name, but he does have an impressive resume. But I think
Now you
have to say his name.
No, people can look it up, but I'm going on the rabbit hole.
I'm not going to say it.
I'm going down the rabbit hole.
You can look it up, and you can see why it's
Anyway, no, that'd be really, really interesting. Just in general, I'm very curious as they continue to go through this process, where they end up, because, like you said, Ku, we had heard kind of the same few names. This is the first time that we had kind of gotten anyone outside of what that original group had been reported as, and even the finalists that had been reported as. And once again, it makes me happy to see, or hear rather, because that means that, one, maybe they weren't inspired by their first round of choices and they wanted to go back out, or two, they didn't leak all the information because they know that they need to control a little bit of it. It's good overall. I think I can forgive a Lassiter as long as he brings in some cash as well, because that's what Mr. Lassiter is losing the University of Hawaii right now with his decision making.
Dude, I still can't believe that his name is way too close to our the guy we love to loathe
IT guy
as the former president, and David Lassiter. But yeah, because just to go back, right, like tweeted out by Mike Whitman that his sources were in terms of that there were 8 candidates that were giving interviews, and now by interviews they did have interviews via Zoom before they invited the 4 finalists to come and do interviews in person. So those are some of the names we saw thrown out there were Jim Donovan, current AD at Fullerton, Bob Moosebrugger, who is at San Diego State, Wes Millett, who is UC Riverside, AD, Matt Elliott, who I know a lot of people, that was kind of their favorite. I think a couple of our texters too really like that guy, formerly with UCLA, and was part of that transition for UCLA into the Big Ten, and now with the Hawaii Community Foundation. George Killebrew, who was a Dallas Mavericks executive and then went over to, where was it again? Rugby, and then pickleball, most recently, the pickleball tour or whatnot. And then Keith Amemiya, the only, I guess, entirely local candidate that we saw in terms of being a finalist on here. And none of them are actually sitting ADs of any of the WAC schools. So again, that's why I was kind of this surprised when Warrior All Access tweeted about that, because it's not even someone that we saw on the initial list. And again, I hear a lot of stuff from Coconut Wireless, from people that are connected to so-and-so, that's so-and-so. I personally, and these guys can attest to it because I will share with them too, I did not even know that this was like anyone from the WAC that was even a finalist. So for this person, like Paul said, to kind of go under the radar for this amount of time, one, kudos to a lot of the people that are actually part of the situation for keeping it under wraps that long, up until somebody told
like
Warrior
they're
All
trading
Access.
Luka Doncic.
I know, and then it's going to come out of nowhere. So now I'm curious too, like who does that kind of, like, can you imagine Matt Elliott as someone who is kind of the, I guess, quote unquote, one of the fan favorites, and him not even being an actual like finalist that was receiving an in-person interview? Because again, only George Killebrew and Wes Millett of UC Riverside are the only 2 I personally could 100 with all confidence confirm that were, I guess, 2 of the 4 finalists. Other than that, like even Matt Elliott, I honestly have not been able to completely confirmed by people that really know what's going on, and then all of the other names as well. And then Keith Amemiya hasn't been shy of making it known that he was interested in the position. But guys, again, kudos to everyone that was able to keep this under wraps for so long. And I kind of agree with you guys just looking at some of the initial lists, and I guess we can forgive him for his last name, but it is just really weird.
He can't control that.
I do
for the most part. I mean, I suppose you could change it, but
I do like the fact that whatever AD that is the current AD in the WAC, that they do have football, right? Because I think that was a big knock on Wes from UC Riverside. They don't have football there. Like, they are in the Big West, but they don't have football. And then someone like George Killebrew, who has no collegiate experience, right, in that position in athletics departments. Matt Elliott, I think that's why he was one of the top candidates amongst the fans in terms of having that experience within collegiate sports, and has since gotten out of it. I know Michael was kind of a fan of, I still want to say Burger, just because I always think of burgers, but Bob Moosebrugger, who also is familiar with collegiate athletics. And then, of course, Jim Donovan. I don't think he was anybody's favorite because we're like, one, they don't have football there, and 2, I'm always someone that wants to move on from the past, and like we just got to keep moving forward and not bring anybody
If we're
back.
gonna rehash an AD that has been fired, we had the guy. We had the guy. So get new blood. If we're gonna get new blood, get new blood. That's how I feel about that one.
100%.
With no disrespect to Jim Donovan, by the way. Hope
No. Anything else, Michael?
I do think, per my sources, not Kool-Aid sources, because we do have multiple sources. I do think Matt Elliott is one of the finalists because as of Friday afternoon, one of my sources texted someone in George Killebrew's camp, and they believe that Matt Elliott will get the job. Now, is that person downplaying it?
Possibly.
Well, so see. But I do think George Killebrew is the favorite. I mean, I think when David Matlin first stepped down in January, he was in a list of names that included Mufi Hanneman and Keith Amamiya as possible replacements. A month later, he stepped down from being commissioner of Major League Rugby, so potentially getting the job. And also, a few weeks after that, he stepped down. We had somebody on Hawaii News Now or the news saying that the scope of the athletic director search for Matlin's replacement was very narrow because he needed 3 years of collegiate experience, which Killebrew didn't have. But that's not in the current job search description.
It is one of the what is it phrased as? Because you have like your must-haves and then your desirable qualifications. Because if I remember the actual job posting, that was under the desirable part of the qualifications and having collegiate experience. But yes, not a necessity like your degree and all that kind of other stuff that's going on. One last thing about this topic, though, because this was another thing I saw floated around, is the possibility of former UH football head coach June Jones making his way to potentially being part of the program again. It's been making its rounds everywhere and even amongst a lot of people. I personally don't know how I feel about that. Actually, I do. I 100% believe, and I said this when we were doing our schedule outlook, that this season will be the turnaround season for the UH football team and that they will do very well. So my only fear of that potentially happening is that if they do well, June would get all the credit and it wouldn't go to everyone else that deserves that it should be.
Has been working so hard to build the program
and
to
if
this
they
point.
fail, then it will not be,
Well,
it will
then
be
it's always
everyone else's fault. And then Timmy should get fired and June Jones should just take over because that's what's going to happen. Right. Like, so I'm a little like,
puts yourself in a tough spot sometimes.
And
Maybe.
I just talked about like how I'm always open. I just want to always move forward. I understand and appreciate, just like Jim Donovan, I appreciate someone who's contributed to the program, to the pinnacle and the peak of what this program has ever seen. But I am very much, I'm like, hey, let's just
allowing him to be around, kind of like last year, where it start like, oh, he becomes associated with the program again. That I think that's fine. But I don't think you need him on the sidelines. I don't think you need him in a GM role. I don't know if you need that as much as like.
No, Matt John's our GM.
Well, and that's kind of what I mean is like, if he was like an advisor, you know how sometimes you get that in like professional sports where you bring on a really old guy to just kind of be like, hey, this might be a good idea. And then they don't ever have to talk to the media. Maybe that's a good idea. Otherwise, you're playing with fire, I think.
Yeah. Anywho.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, any assistant coaching hires needs to be approved by, I can't remember if it's the president, athletic director, or the board of regents. So,
somebody.
I know under David Matlin, it had to be the athletic director because that was the whole thing with the hiring of Timmy with. If it was going to be June, that he wouldn't approve because June wanted to bring on Rich Miano and Matlin wanted to. It was like this whole thing. Don't want to rehash all of that again because, again, we're moving forward. But, yes, it would be the athletics director.
Yeah, so I don't know what June's current relationship with the current administration is. I know we had Dan Weisenhall have a very long press conference, and as far as I know, Dan Weisenhall is still the spokesperson. So I don't know if that's going to happen. But I do want to say, we mentioned about Timmy and the credit is that David Matlin wanted to have a succession plan, and I think it was either 2 or 3 years. So I know this is his 4th year, and this is kind of about the point in time where they wanted Timmy to take over as head coach in this succession plan. So I think this coming season, I think this is a really good season to judge Timmy on. And
Agree.
kind of don't look at his past seasons, because honestly, even the University of Hawaii knew that Timmy wasn't ready to be a head coach. But now he's got the experience, and now this is when I think you can really start to kind of dig in, especially since the stadium's going to be built in 2028, and we're going to have something to forward to.
I like that you keep saying that. It makes me happy.
Love the optimism by our Michael Liscaro every time. And yeah, that's
He's
why.
speaking it into existence.
But yeah, just to add on to your point of that's what because usually they always say, right, like 3 years you take to turn around a program. I think Timmy being almost like a year behind with all of the departures and kind of learning on the job that first year of being a head coach and trying to figure things out, I think that did set him back a year. So this fourth year is kind of like all right, this is the turnaround year that we should expect. Anyways, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we will go back over to our NBA discussion and want to get your guys' take on the early NBA finals predictions between the Pacers and the Thunder next on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Ku'ulei Agbayani and Paul Brecht and Michael Liscaro on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM, AM 760, hawaiisportsradio.com, and streaming live on our YouTube channel. So thank you guys for tuning in. All right, getting back to our NBA conversation. Now the NBA finals are set. Sad face for Paul Brecht, but it's okay. He's fine. We're a couple of days removed from it right now. So actually 2 days and a second half removed from the Knicks competing with the Indiana Pacers. But again, if you guys are just tuning into our YouTube channel, our Michael Liscaro totally came prepared for this YouTube show as he is decked out from head to waist anyways of Indiana Pacers gear. He has an Indiana Pacers hat, a shirt, and he even brought his Paul George Pacers jersey, throwback jersey at this point, into
size
the
medium
studio.
doesn't fit anymore.
He also brought a flag and everything.
Sorry,
Nice, Michael.
that one.
So it's officially a throwback. And of course his Pacers flag that he is.
Oh, wow. That was
You okay
good.
there, Paul?
No,
Paul,
that one killed me. That was really funny. I just didn't expect him to say that. That's all. Oh God, whatever. Anyway,
Well, that's why I'm not wearing it.
or else he would have been totally wearing it at that point. All right. Game one between the Pacers and Thunder is Thursday for everybody on ABC. And the Thunder, almost a 10-point or a double-digit favorite, but favored by 9.5. Pacers plus 310 on the money line, and total set at 230.5. And I'm actually kind of surprised that the spread is. I actually think the Pacers will be a bit more competitive in this. Now, I do know it's kind of difficult to play at OKC, but I'm very much a believer in these types of games where if the team has been resting for a bit longer than the other team, there is a chance that they could come out a little slower. And to be fair, OKC they got taken to 7 games by obviously a very stacked team who his name made his way into our conversation with the Denver Nuggets. Yeah, but no. With a star. Anyways, we'll get back into that. But no, what is some of your guys' predictions? We know our Kyle Galdera said he's taking the Thunder in 5. I know obviously our Michael Escarrow will have something to say about that. But just in general, the Pacers are your 5-1 underdogs to win this series. Thunder, your minus 700 favorites to win it all. And the shortest odds in terms of the length of this series is at 5 games. So 2-1 for 5 games, 3-1 for 4 games, or that sweep, plus 275 for the 6, and plus 350 for a game 7. So hearing these initial odds, I'll give you the floor for a little bit, Michael. What say you now that your team is in the NBA Finals, back here anyways, after a very long time? And how are we feeling? We're gonna have this fun debate with you and Kyle maybe coming up this week, or in your true taking the fandom hat out of it and basketball analyst itself, what do you see, and how do the Pacers kind of prove the odds makers and a lot of other NBA fans out there wrong and be able to beat the Thunder in the NBA Finals?
Well, the Pacers are at their best when people count them out. When people don't respect them. We saw that in the Cleveland series when I think 13 ESPN writers all picked the Cavs to beat the Pacers. They're saying Cavs in 5, Cavs in 6, Cavs in 7. No, it was Pacers in 5. And that, but again, when the Pacers are like reading their own press clippings, then they kind of get them themselves and they don't have that same intensity. I think, there's some controversy about the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. I think last year with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. This year it was like kind of split down the middle, almost 5-4 between Pascal Siakam and Tyrese Halliburton. I know there's that clip of Halliburton thinking he's going to accept the award, and I think that's just going to fuel him because, hey, this is not the award that we're looking for.
I think he was trying to copy the Drewski meme.
No, I don't. I think he believed that he was going to get it.
He probably did, but I also think he was very capable of pivoting quickly because maybe I'm wrong and you can correct me on this. I think his ego, I know he does the whatever, he likes to troll and whatever. I don't think his ego is absurd.
No.
So I think he probably did think he was going to win and then immediately pivoted in the moment to do the Drewski thing because it was very, very close. Anyway, sorry.
Well, no, I don't think he's trying to be like Drewski. And by the way, Drewski might be canceled. He is in the Sean Combs P. Diddy trials and documents. Anyways, but Halliburton, he's a great teammate. I know in the locker room when Pascal Siakam was taking a photo with, his smaller MVP trophy, Halliburton saw that there's a photo opportunity, so he brought the trophy over so that his teammate Pascal Siakam could hold both trophies. There is no egos on this team, and everybody believes that they can have their moment. And we saw in Game 6, we had Thomas Bryant, who fell out of the rotation, hit 3 threes against the Knicks.
Each one felt like a gunshot.
And, Thomas Bryant, right now, his most famous moment was the moment when LeBron broke the scoring record, where he's calling for a post up because he's got SJ sealed off in the photo. So, but yeah, for the Pacers, they are gonna need one of those incredible comeback, one of those magical moments that they had in the Bucks series, the Cavs series, and the Knicks series. That is very paramount. I know we're on a time show, so I do want to hear what Paul says, but I think it could be 2-2. And some magic happens Game 5 and the Pacers close it out in Game 6. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the Pacers are down 2-0. They're being the road team, they're definitely going to need to win their home games. That's something that they haven't done. But, Tyrese Halliburton is undefeated at Gainbridge Fieldhouse when Pops is in the building. So that's kind of a reassuring thing. And they're undefeated when Caitlin Clark is there. I know Caitlin Clark's rehabbing from her hamstring, her thigh, her quad. I don't know what it was, but they need everybody and anybody. But if they can steal one in game 1 or game 2, that sets them up. But yeah, the Pacers they are gonna come. I do want to point out that this is probably one of the closest NBA finals in terms of distance.
Yeah, they can drive to each other.
It's Midwest, and that's kind of cool. And I think the time off favors Indiana. I know when OKC played when they played Memphis, I think they swept Memphis. They had a lot of time off, and they showed some rust against the Denver Nuggets in game 1 of the Western Conference semifinals. I think one thing that to highlight, I know there's a lot of advanced stats, but OKC's three-point shot has not been the same as it was in the regular season. I think out of the 16 teams in the playoffs, right, so this is taking everything into account, OKC is 13th in three-point field goal percentage. While Pacers are first in three-point field goal percentage and regular field goal percentage and a lot of stats. OKC does have a faster pace than Indiana. I think they're ranked second in terms of pace. So it's going to be really interesting to see if Isaiah Joe and Lou Dortz can find their shooting stroke. If they can't, Pacers will have a chance. I know Isaiah Joe was their shooter. I think he shot 42% from 3 in the regular season. In the playoffs, it's much below. I think he's at 38% now, but that's because he went 3 for 3 in that closeout game against Timberwolves. Lou Dortz, I think he shot 40% in the regular season. He's around 30% or 31% from 3. So, and as Koo said, whenever she watched the Pacers, so she needs to do more often. They just make 3-point. They just make 3-pointers.
It's really quite uncanny. Like when I actually pay attention to the game, I'm like, every time I watch, I'm like, are the Pacers gonna miss a shot yet, or like what's going on here? Every single time.
I know.
Every
I
single
felt
time.
the same way.
I am so sorry, Paul. Like I am so sorry I did that to you. That like I have all of this power, and anytime my eyeballs are watching the TV, like the Pacers know that I'm watching, and they're like, we can't miss because Ku'ule Agbayani all the way in Hawaii
the Knicks
is
shirts.
watching, and that's kind of what happened. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to say that.
It's your fault. I know. It's totally fine. I'm really interested in this series. I know that there was some big consternation about like, 2 small market teams, blah, 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 blah. If you like basketball, you're going to love this series.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And I say all of this. I'm going to just outwardly say this. I think the Thunder win this series. I think they're, frankly, the best team in the NBA this year, and they have been from start to finish. That being said, I think it'd be, I mean, not borderline. I think it is disrespectful to just discount the Pacers up until this point as if they have not had one of the most magical postseasons we've seen in recent memory. And going directly off of what you just said, this team shoots the lights out, and it's everybody. They can play 5 out. They can play inside out. They're going to need some superhuman stretches from some of their non-star guys, but they've continued to get that, and from different guys throughout the entire series. We talked about it. Thomas Bryant hits multiple threes in a series after he gets benched earlier on in that same series. It's uncanny how good they are at stepping up to the plate in big situations. I don't disagree with Michael in terms of game 1 might be the biggest opportunity for Indiana to steal one in OKC and completely similar to the Knicks series, change the tenor of this series where the Thunder, like Michael said, have been off for a little bit longer than the Pacers. The Pacers have been in a pretty good rhythm overall. Both of these teams are incredibly deep. I don't think you're going to see much of a wear down like you kind of saw in the Eastern Conference Finals between the Pacers and Knicks. I'm going to look at the rebounding battle most importantly. I think the Knicks kind of prepared the Pacers for what they're going to need to be ready for against OKC, especially considering a former New York Knick in Isaiah Hartenstein is in the middle there. And I don't have to remind Michael how impactful Hartenstein was during the series last year between the Knicks and the Pacers. So I do find that to be something that's going to be a big key to watch for. In all, I think I probably end up picking Thunder in 6. I think the Pacers have had an incredible postseason. It would not surprise me at all if they come out and upset the Thunder because we've seen this Pacers team do, unspeakable things at times. Like we joke about the dark arts and devil magic and all this stuff, but like they truly are doing things that are very, very rarely seen. And I will say this as well. I think there is something to be said about the fact that Pascal Siakam has finals experience. The guy is a champion. Like, you can say however good that the Thunder are and their best players, they're so young and all of this stuff. Pascal Siakam has played in a finals, has won a finals. And maybe it's just because I just watched him put, bell to butt for the Knicks for the entire series, but like, the guy doesn't seem to be impacted very much. If he gets to a spot, he's going to make a shot. And if he can be that consistent with what we have seen from the rest of this Pacers squad, if you continue to get that, you can be in the fight against OKC. It's just, I said this to you before last weekend, Koo. When it comes to Pacers versus Thunder, it feels like I'm watching two very similar teams. Mm-hmm. It's just one is the better version of it, and I feel like the Thunder are a better version of what the Pacers are.
I also am curious to get your guys' take, too, because as we mentioned, the Nuggets taking them to 7 games, and obviously a lot of that has the Denver Nuggets, like I said, has the star in Nikola Jokic. And so I wanted to bring him up because obviously that was an issue when he came to Chet Holmgren. But do the Pacers have anybody that can kind of bring that same type of battle against a Chet Holmgren like we saw Nikola Jokic? Or will we just see, because obviously SGA is going to do SGA things, and same thing with Tyrese Halliburton on the Pacers side. But Michael and even Paul, because you've seen the Pacers obviously play against your team in this previous series in the Eastern Conference Finals, but that to me is somewhat going to be an X factor in terms of when we come to matchups and like kind of what you just said, Paul, where one team is just a better version of the other. And I don't think that the Pacers, and again, you are more than welcome to correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, is that if there's anyone that can come remotely close to your Chet Holmgren that they have over there at OKC.
Well, that's kind of an interesting question because I think when the Pacers played the Thunder during the regular season, Chet Holmgren was not available in both matchups. Now you're like, wow, they're winning that full streak. I would say that they were playing a smaller lineup with match what the Pacers are doing, so it could go both ways. Now I do think with Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein, that was better equipped at defending the Denver Nuggets with their center being the focal point. Miles Turner is not going to be the focal point. You'll have Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam. Now Paul brought up a good point about rebounding because the Thunder don't really rebound as much as kind of like the Pacers. And you brought up the X factor. The X factor, and Paul kind of touched on about it, is about Pascal Siakam. I'll counter with saying that the Thunder do have Alex Caruso, who's also won a title, but the X factor is the coaching staff with Rick Carlisle and company.
I missed that point
Rick
too.
Carlisle
Thank you for bringing that up.
They schemed LeBron really well when the Mavericks won the title back in 2011. And the cool thing about Rick Carlisle is that, and the coaching staff, they dance circles around the competition in the Eastern Conference. I know people want Tibbs fired, and that's why Carlisle was really quick to give them kudos, because it's not that Tibbs was a bad coach. It's just that the Pacers were on a magical ride, and the Pacers have their whole coaching staff. Lloyd Pierce, Jenny Busek, Mike Weiner, Gennaro Pargo. The fact that I can name them shows that they've been spoken about as being really great people in this or player impact, that they have a role on the coaching staff. They have elite role clarity with the team, and everybody has their part to help with the fit with the puzzle. Now OKC, I don't even know how to spell Mark Dingle. What's his last name? Dingle. And if you look at him, you wouldn't even know he's the head coach. He doesn't have that aura.
No, that brother's like 12 years old.
Yeah. So Rick Carlisle will be the X factor, and it's a series, and there was definitely adjustments made in the Bucks series. There were adjustments made in the Cavs series. We had to figure out their 2-3 zone, and we had to make adjustments to the Knicks. And one of the adjustments in Game 6 for the Knicks was once Aaron Nesmith got his first foul, we switched Andrew Nembhard onto Brunson, who had a phenomenal game with 6 steals, but also in that switch with Nembhard guarding Brunson, in the cross switches, the cross matches, that meant that OG Anunoby was off of him, and that's why he couldn't get on track, because he had this really huge defensive presence. But now that he's kind of cross matched with Brunson, Nembhard was able to be more of a stuff. So it's going to be an adjustment game. And like Paul said, if you're a basketball fan, you're going to watch this because both teams have the arsenal to make those adjustments, and you can see every game is different. Now, one thing with the past series with the Timberwolves is they just let SGA get whatever he want. They weren't like the Denver Nuggets where they would send a hard double, they would blitz him and get the ball of his hands. And, Paul mentioned, I think, former Knick. Well, Julius Randle in that game one, he lighted up from the first half, but he was a liability on defense. He was basically a no-show. He was not helping the helper on defense. He was just not doing anything. And, and the Pacers, they don't have that culture. They have a better culture than that.
I'm familiar with Julius and that defensive effort or lack thereof, I guess.
I like a good point by you about bringing up the coaching, because we always talk about this too, right? Like in any professional sport, you have the best players in the world, and a lot of it does come down that one teeny bit of thing on what coach is going to outcoach the other. And this is what we have come to with the NBA Finals. Again, two teams that are built similar, but also very different in their own ways. But either way, like what we were kind of saying earlier, is that as basketball fans, this is going to be a fun series. It's going to be fun basketball. And hey, what are the odds that people are interested to see, two teams that they haven't seen in a long time with fresh new faces? Take note, college sports, just especially college football and the SEC. Anyways, but looking forward to it. Again, some of the odds right now, as our Vegas texter is saying, Indy 5-1 NBA series. Bet at least 1K. All right, bet at least 1K, everybody. Oh yeah, I just realized no more 1K for Paul. On the futures bet market.
I've already thought about it.
Oh, no more.
I watched it go up in flames.
No more 1K wedding gift that Paul would have gotten.
It was fun while it lasted.
Yeah.
It lasted longer than I thought it was going to, and that's what I can be happy about.
That's why futures and with sports betting is like one of my favorite things, just because you can just sit there and hopefully let it ride for a long time. But that's Vegas saying 1K. And looking at, again, the futures odds, the odds are shortest odds of the series to go 5 games at 2-1, 6 games at plus 275, 4 games 3-1, and 7 games at plus 350. And going back to what you guys were saying about the rebounds, no surprise, most rebounds in the series. Chet Holmgren, the minus 125 favorite, but second shortest odds, Pascal Siakam at 5-1, followed by Isaiah Hartenstein at plus 550. So take that how you must, but I don't think there's barring any injuries, of course, I don't think there's any argument against Chet Holmgren at this point. Most points in the series by a long shot, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at minus 5,000. So everyone believes that the points are going to grow through Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and actually Tyrese Halliburton, 40-1 odds to score the most points in this series. Pascal Siakam ahead of him at 30-1, and Jalen Williams at 25-1. So that's kind of a interesting little tidbit there. Any guesses? I'm sure you guys don't know who has the shortest odds for the MVP at this point.
Surely it's not the league MVP.
Definitely not at all. But of course, yes, it is. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander minus 625 to win the NBA Finals MVP, followed by Tyrese Halliburton at 7-1 odds, and then there's your drop off at Pascal Siakam at 16-1, which. Hey,
it's good value.
I was like, 16-1 Pascal Siakam. That actually sounds kind of interesting.
What's Jalen Williams?
Jalen Williams is at 30-1.
That's
right
also
behind,
worth a sprinkle.
Yeah, right behind actually Pascal Siakam, and then Chet Holmgren's up there at 80-1 odds to win the NBA Finals MVP.
He's probably like up there too. I just am not really I know this is insane to say. I'm not really like a believer in Chet. Like I think he's good, but like, he doesn't send me over the edge.
You don't got to tell me, because during that draft, he was like projected to go number 1, and then it ended up being Paolo, and I was like over the moon when that happened.
And I know Chet's really good. Like his defensive ceiling is phenomenal. He's got the ability to shoot threes. He can do whatever, but just, I don't know. Like part of me, I look at him and I think like Kristaps Porzingis, like ceiling type of thing. And I know he's a better defender than Kristaps ever was and whatever, but I don't know. That's why I'm not jumping. I'm like, 80-1. Oh, because that is like worth a sprinkle if we're talking in terms of these top 5 players. But also like,
I do like the Pascal Siakam sprinkle actually for the Finals MVP. Even though my early prediction is it will be the Thunder in 6. I do think it'll be a lot more competitive than people are saying with the 5, but I do think it'll be the Thunder in 6, which is why I said, Michael, if the Pacers are able to win this, we can put your Pacers flag up here because
if
no
the
problem.
Pacers win this, we're gonna get a flag this size up here.
No. And it'll go right behind Paul because that's where it's gonna fit.
No.
You're gonna have to convince Paul to let you put a Pacers flag behind him over there.
Oh gosh. Go to break.
We do need to go to break, so we'll be back to close it out here on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back, beautiful people. It's Wake Up in the Den, Ku'ulei Agbayani, Paul Brecht, and Michael Lescaro on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network and hawaiisportsradio.com, and of course streaming live on our YouTube channel like we are this and every Monday.
Caesar, glad you could make it finally.
Caesar's jumping in here a little late than usual. Usually he's the first to chime into the live chat, but today it was Felipe Hernandez. So hello to everybody. Hello to Robert, our UAB fan that's also in here on our YouTube. And Mike J chiming in on when we were talking about the June Jones conversation on coming to potentially, I don't know, word on the street anyways, Coconut Wireless. Maybe coming into aid with the football program. But if you missed any of that conversation, you can always listen on demand, or you can go back and watch the YouTube, of course, on demand that will be set to public right after we're all pal here, and chime in anytime. But earlier in hour number 1, we were talking about the superstar status in the NBA. And if now that we're kind of coming at the end of an era, not just with the NBA on TNT, but also just in its entirety, like with the superstars of the NBA, be it LeBron James and Steph Curry are kind of the top two that come into mind. And then now with the young, fresh new faces coming in, like your Tyrese Halliburton and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I was kind of thinking about it, and Paul and I were talking about it last week on. And to me, I think there is just complete opinion based. To me, there are like different tiers. I feel like there is a superstar, and I don't like how superstars get the name gets, or the ranking gets thrown around. Like we hear GOAT all the time. There's superstar, and then there are stars. And then you just have really, really darn good players, right? Like you were kind of like trying to receipt me earlier about Nikola Jokic, and I never said he wasn't a star. I think he's a star, but I don't feel like he's reached the superstar level. And I do like how Paul kind of made the reference in the hour number one with someone that is very the name and the face at a certain point becomes recognizable outside of basketball, right? I think maybe Nikola, and of course, obviously in his country, everybody knows who that is, but I don't know if he's there. One of the top 3 best players in the NBA. He's at the star level. I see other players that maybe potentially could be superstars, like a Victor Wembanyama, but the team has to be good. So I think you do need to actually be a player on a team that wins. Doesn't necessarily win the NBA title, but be competitive and be able to at least get to a conference finals, be competitive, all of that stuff. But that's just, again, my opinion. And I know, Michael, we were up against the clock in hour number one, so didn't get a chance to chime in on what you define as like a superstar. And if you even look at it that way, or if you just think stars and superstars are the same thing.
Well, I mean, I just got to go back to the Nikola Jokic thing, because you say he's the star, but then you say Victor Wembanyama, who hasn't really done anything. And
well, I said when he does.
Yeah, but yeah. So what does it take for Nikola Jokic to be a superstar in your eyes?
For more people to kind of know of him.
He was like the poster child for Despicable Me. He was a bronze medalist.
That is where I am thinking about.
He was the only player. He's won 3 MVPs.
I think I'm a little biased too, because I feel like if my grandma tells me about them, I'm like, all right, this person has. So she's talked to me about LeBron James and Steph Curry and yada yada, and of course, obviously, we know Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and I'm like, I don't think she's ever brought up anything about Nikola Jokic before.
Because part of that is because the American media public, mainly ESPN, refuses to talk about the international stars because they want to pump up the next American superstar. They did it with Ja Morant, and that failed. They did it with Anthony Edwards, and who you yourself
highlight reel.
Jokic,
but Jokic has a highlight reel.
Reels.
Like I don't know if we can make that case.
Like there's so many things that Jokic, like incredible passing. The only player to win a 30-point, 20 rebound, 20 assist game. Nobody is doing that. Not even the Big O, not even Russell Westbrook. Jokic is on another level, and if you're considered to be the best player in the NBA for multiple years by your peers and by the media, you are a superstar.
I like that one too. So, and this is what we were getting at to end our number one, which is why it's such an interesting conversation, because it is such a subjective meaning to what superstar is. Because to person, like to you, it'd be a little bit more like, all right, are they known? Do they transcend the sport? Are they known outside of the sport? With Michael, at that point, I like that point a lot. Like, can you be considered the best player in your sport multiple years over? Like, that's a good question for it as well. It's all really interesting. Michael, I want to ask you this.
Real quick, before I let you. So,
you're fine.
Kind of like when we look at gymnastics, right? Like, I think even though Simone Biles is like the greatest gymnast ever, I feel like superstar status, she's up there, duh. But I think someone that's kind of right behind her would be Suni Lee, even though she's nowhere near the accolades that Simone Biles has achieved or will ever achieve. But her mainstream marketability has just been like insane throughout the Olympics, and like all of her story and everything like that. Anyways, I digress. So anyways, like we talked about marketability and kind of the mainstream kind of knowing a little bit more about who you are.
Such an interesting, like, because like, I don't know if I put that there. So Michael, this is what I wanted to ask you before we go, because this is one that I go back and forth with. If you had to think about it, ballpark, how many superstars do you think are in the NBA right now? Like, how many would you categorize as superstars?
Right now in the NBA, you have Steph Curry, you have LeBron James, Kevin Durant is barely hanging on, you have Giannis, you have Jokic. Those are your 5 superstars in the NBA right now.
I think that's fair.
Joel Embiid, not consistent enough. The MVP
Always
was
hurt.
Just because Jokic did because of voter fatigue. Kawhi Leonard just had an incredible year in Toronto, hasn't done anything since then.
Also
SGA
always hurt.
is not there yet. You know, you do need to win a championship. Jason Tatum's pretty close there, but the thing is with Jason Tatum is that he's just corny. Like, people don't really view themselves. Nobody, and that sucks for Jason Tatum. And I agree with who says that, hey, you're a star and top 5 player. Jason Tatum, top 5 player in the NBA, but not a superstar.
I think he's the one that he is like the litmus test. I think right. where you're talking about Mark, because I don't disagree with you at all. I do think he's corny. But I also think you could make the case that he's a superstar because he has won a championship. He is first team All NBA all the time. Like, he is this phenomenal basketball player. It's such a I love it. I love it. You guys
this is
have
one of
to
those
text
things
in,
that it's like,
leave a comment.
I'm like, I don't consider Jason Tatum a superstar either. I'm like, he's a star. He's one of the best players. He's won a championship, but he just doesn't have that overall marketability that everyone loves him. Everyone knows him. That you're like, I very much like
such a stupid metric too.
Yeah, I very much like the analogy or the comparison that you made during the break about the chefs. I think that is probably the best example. And then Paul basically said that like we know chefs that are celebrities and all of that stuff that are like Chef Gordon Ramsay. Chef Megan is our favorite, but you have your Gordon Ramsay, Rachel Ray that was really big at one time. Doesn't mean there isn't better chefs out there. It's just they are kind of the superstar of the chefs just because they've made it to that status. Anyways, again, fun conversation. But for now, we got to go. So for Paul Brecht, Michael Liscaro, I'm Ku'ulei Agbayani. Mahalo for listening and watching. It's been Wake Up in the Den. Bye.
The OIA lives